So welcome to the 10 p.m. Hour, and this is the Envisioning Intelligence's 24-hour event, and we're at the 10 p.m. We're not quite halfway there yet, so everybody's still rested and ready to go. And I'm so glad because we have a great team here that are the creators of the Knowledge Cosmos, which is one of the new works that are part of the inaugural year for the Envisioning Intelligences exhibit. We're really happy to have that. Let me introduce the folks. First, Alec. Alec McGail is a computational sociologist whose research combines network science, natural language processing, and social theory to explore how knowledge is produced, remembered, and forgotten. He earned his PhD from Cornell University, where he studied citation dynamics, collective memory, and an intellectual lineage in the social sciences. He is now a full-time contractor for NASA, building tools for designing and running LLM human workflows, which scaffold and gamify processes for brainstorming future scenarios and technological innovation in convergent aeronautics solutions. Then we have Rifaa Tajani. She is an artist, designer, and technologist whose work spans systems thinking, storytelling, and product design. She is currently a Master in Design Engineering candidate at Harvard University and holds a BA in Design and BBA Information Systems from the University of Texas at Austin. As an innovation designer at IBM, she works at the forefront of generative AI and emerging technologies to build tools that bridge user needs with technical possibility. And then Nikita Sridhar is a UX designer and researcher based in New York City with a background in mechanical engineering and a master's degree in user experience and HCI from the University of Michigan. Her work spans interdisciplinary collaboration, immersive technologies, and sustainable design, with a focus on making complex systems accessible and engaging. At IBM Client Engineering, she leads human-centered design for enterprise AI solutions. Welcome all, and I apologize for the Midwestern American pronunciation of your names. But I would challenge you to try to pronounce my last name. It is difficult. So, but thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much for that introduction. That was
Yeah,
very
absolutely.
just.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much, Alec and Todd. It's wonderful to meet you and yeah, to be a part of this event. The Knowledge Cosmos was born about nearly 3 years ago, this time 3 years ago. And so we're super excited to be on this journey together and yeah, to continue picking up the perspectives of the people that we've been sharing the tool with. And so we hope that today is very interactive. We hope that it's engaging. We are excited to present and share the Knowledge Cosmos with you all, but we're also really excited about collecting your feedback, your thoughts, your explorations, as this is a tool that really is built on the concept of play and serendipity. And so thank you so much, Todd, for the introduction. I'll start us off with kind of setting the context for what were the questions that framed this project and how did the Knowledge Cosmos come to be? And then, yeah, we'll get started and get a chance to take a look at the tool and explore it together. So when we first started all of this, there was an understanding that we're living in an era today of unprecedented scientific production. Every day, thousands of new papers appear, and each one is a small contribution to the world's shared body of knowledge. But with scale, we've seen a lot of fragmentation. Disciplines are growing deeper, but further apart, and researchers are becoming experts in increasingly narrow domains. And the more the universe of knowledge expands, it's becoming harder to navigate, to synthesize, and to imagine the connections across its boundaries. Yet, historically, what we've observed is that the most transformative breakthroughs have never stayed within individual silos or within their own lanes. They've emerged often from unexpected encounters between fields and between a diversity of ways of thinking. So the question that Nikita and Alec and I were asked was simple but quite vast, which was what would it look like to create a space, a literal navigable universe where the structure of human knowledge and science could become visible, a space where anyone could explore science the way we maybe explore the night sky, by wandering and drifting and discovering. And this is the question that led us to the Knowledge Cosmos, which is a 3D immersive universe of today 17 million research papers designed not just as a tool, but as an invitation to curiosity, to interdisciplinarity, and to really enjoy the process of learning and discovery and research. And so with that, we'll kind of walk through the ideas that first shaped this project. So as we just briefly mentioned, across history, breakthroughs have emerged in the spaces between disciplines. So for example, spectroscopy, which was born in chemistry, became essential to decoding starlight. And machine learning, we see, fuels art, it fuels medicine and language, and visualization merges design and science by making the invisible visible. And so research consistently confirms this pattern that the work that spans between multiple fields is far more likely to generate the paradigm shifting insights that we're seeing and higher impact research. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Nikita to walk us through the metaphors and the components that make up the knowledge cosmos.
Thanks, Rifaa. And much like Rifaa was explaining, all of these factors led to the vision that essentially inspired the knowledge cosmos. Something that we wanted to focus on was, rather than just searching for ideas through keywords and more rigid taxonomies, here users can more so explore the landscape of global research as if they're exploring the night sky, which is guided by proximity, patterns, and intuition. So in our system, we have clusters that reveal thriving research communities. And here, each cluster represents a domain where those ideas accumulate, they collaborate, and evolve. The denser regions suggest active knowledge production, and where clusters that touch or blend signal boundary crossing fields are where this interdisciplinary work is already thriving. And then we also have gaps, which conversely reveal opportunities. These are regions where small or non-existent bodies of literature suggest untapped areas for future exploration. So these voids aren't necessarily just absences, they're invitations. They hint at the questions that remain unasked, or disciplines that we have yet to meet. And intersections reveal where those disciplines already meet, interact, and thus produce new discoveries. These hybrid zones show the blending of things like methods, metaphors, and research traditions, areas where the interdisciplinary work is forming the foundation of tomorrow's. At the very heart of this platform, however, is play. So the Knowledge Cosmos reframes research exploration as a joyful and intuitive experience, something that we want to seem closer to stargazing rather than just searching. Here, users can zoom, pan, and wander through a celestial map of global scholarship, uncovering relationships that linear queries could never necessarily surface. So we have some gamified moments like navigating through constellations, following trails of related ideas, or discovering unexpected proximities. And these hope to support curiosity across audiences, which could be students, educators, artists, researchers, and lifelong learners. And crucially, they facilitate the moments of serendipity that often spark the most unexpected insights. So in the Knowledge Cosmos, we use two guiding metaphors. The first that I had mentioned earlier is constellations, and constellations represent disciplines. Just as astronomers traced shapes among stars to make sense of the night sky, we trace patterns among research clusters to help users visualize how fields define themselves and where their boundaries begin to blur. The second metaphor that we use is the cosmos itself, which is this vast and ever-expanding universe of research. It communicates scale, openness, and possibility. In this cosmic framing, science is not a static archive of papers. We see it as a landscape of ideas, dynamic, interdependent, and constantly evolving. Together, these metaphors invite users to experience knowledge as not as something to retrieve, but as something to explore, to wander through, to get lost in, and to revisit with new eyes. So in the very end, our hope here is simple, that the knowledge cosmos becomes not just a visualization tool, but a space that inspires new questions, new connections, and also just new ways of imagining what discovery and exploration could look like. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Alec to provide a demo and an interactive look into the tool in action.
All right. Let's see. So I was already, as you can see, in this tool. I'm just going to reset things. We'll start from scratch. So this is sort of home for us, a place where we can always go back to when we get lost. It sort of helps ground our orientation through this, these 17 million papers. And I'm just going to go over first what these individual dots are. So each dot is actually an academic article. You can see the citation here and actually a link to the publisher along with, maybe I'll zoom in a little bit so this is easier to see, along with the fields that this has been categorized in. This is semantic scholar data, but the points themselves are arranged according to embeddings that were pulled from a model that is trying to predict the academic field of a paper from its title and abstract. So these are semantic embeddings. They're Spectre for those that know or are familiar with this. But essentially, they're arranged semantically based on their, what those words mean for what field it would be in. And then the positions are kind of optimized based on citation data. So what cites what. And to get a better idea of what we're looking at here, I'm just turning on the field labels. So as we rotate around, we can see in the distance some of these larger fields, and then in the foreground here, a lot of subfields of economics, public relations. We've got psychology as we're wrapping around here. Medicine is an incredibly large field, and then more abstract or technical parts of medicine like virology and immunology, biochemistry, computation. And I'm just going around one of the possible paths you can sort of follow around what will probably look to you like a ring, which I'll show you in a second. You can see we're into chemistry, mathematics. Here we have this like lobe that's sticking out for particle physics, astrophysics, astrobiology. And just to be clear, the structures of this are just based on trying to get those points in this 3D representation to sit relatively close to their neighbors in this high dimensional embedding space. So the structures that we're seeing here are, I guess you would say, inductive. They're straight out of the data in some way. So then, I find it very interesting and inspiring to think about what are these topological, these ridges, and especially this hole in the middle here. You can sort of see through from the top here, you can see through the entire cloud. So if we go here into the middle, sort of a very sparse space, interestingly enough, where if we look at any individual paper, we'll zoom in on this one. This one is exposure to aircraft noise and risk of psychiatric disorders. And this is a very interesting place to look around because these are sort of the unplaceable papers in some way. This inner void, it's like the most interdisciplinary spot that you'll find in the graph. Although, of course, like most of it is interdisciplinary. And there's a really interesting specific field. I'll just show you a few more features. So if you click on a label, it highlights the constellation for that. And the engineering field, let me just turn off the labels for a second so we can see this a little bit more clearly, has a very interesting shape. You can see it sort of like reaching these arms, these tendrils around the cosmos. And for instance, there's this whole lobe is basically devoid. I don't know if you can see my mouse on the right. This lobe is basically devoid of engineering, and here on the left, it's essentially devoid of engineering. We zoom in here and see what we're looking at. So here we're at automotive and architectural engineering, manufacturing engineering, but of course also computer science has this rather thick arm into it. And then here we're coming into like the social sciences with physical medicine, rehabilitation, orthodontics. This is just one example of how uh, the logical and meaningful relationships between these fields are represented in their topology, their shape in this graph. I'm also going to show off some of the other features. So here, the initial tab that's opened up on the side, on the right-hand side, I'll close this. I can turn off some of these things. The filters. So we can filter to any individual field. Let's say physics. Let's see what physics looks like. And now we have a subdivision, very colorful subdivision of physics. You can also click on these swatches on the right to filter to a few fields that you want to look at in particular. And then I was clicking around to show constellations, but we can also just type in here a constellation that we're interested in, bringing up engineering again, as it would probably have a strong overlap with physics. And here you can click the triangle to change its color to something random, which is often useful when they're too similar, or you just have aesthetic preferences. Another very interesting feature for my own, exploration around this, playing around, exploring, is the intersections tab. So here, actually, let me deselect for a second or refresh. Okay, so the intersection tab starts by coloring each field, which already is a little bit of a new view of the knowledge cosmos, give you a little bit more intuition about the mix. And also when you're in the knowledge cosmos, you can click on an individual field and you'll see what that specific field is that's been highlighted for a certain paper. But it is also quite fun to look at the intersections that these fields have with other fields. So we'll go back to physics. Again, we're showing just the physics papers here, but now they're colored by what other field they're a part of. So we can see the core physics in, the red physics color, but here we see green. I'm also colorblind. I'll just preface my determinations of color here. It looks like green. So this is an intersection of geology and physics. And we have a whole sort of strain here, or line, or feature, which sort of blends the physics and geology literature. There is I'll just for a comprehensive overview of the features for your own purposes, here on the right, the top, we can go to the history, which gives you a history of all the papers that you've clicked on all the individual nodes you've clicked on. So if we want to go back to here, or maybe to our aircraft noise, and remember where it is, or follow the link, this is helpful. And here you can also bookmark an individual paper, and it'll show up in your saved papers. So with that, I'll end the demo of the functionality of the knowledge cosmos, just sort of scratching the surface. Did I stop sharing? That was not the correct thing to do. Let's go back to the slides. And hand it off to Rifaa to talk a little bit about the next steps that we have in mind
Mhm.
for this tool, what we've been thinking, and where we're going with it.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of different directions that we're really excited about. So as you may have noticed, like not only are we excited about play and serendipity, but current research tools. When you think of, academic research, you think of, Google Scholar, Semantic Scholar. You're thinking about where you're going to be finding these papers. Maybe your university or academic institution has its own repository. But we're really excited in what would a world look like where just like how you doom scroll for knowledge and videos like through YouTube, what would it look like for users to do that with the Knowledge Cosmos and just be excited about what other people are discovering and also begin to question the gaps of where there is a lack of knowledge at the intersection of various disciplines and begin to question, oh, well, what might sit at the intersection of two or three or four disciplines? So when it comes to like, the future of the Knowledge Cosmos, we're really open to contributors, to collaborators. We're excited about what more data would look like. In our current like time function, we have papers up until 2017, but this is again just a blip in the ocean. So we're super excited about scaling. What does the cosmos look like today versus what will it look like with the last decade of research? Comparing that, we're excited about different data sets and mapping those negative spaces, the lakes that have been formed. Right now, in this current iteration, we've been focusing on these intersections and the density of them. But, what exists or could exist, in the negative spaces. What would collaborative storytelling look like if we took repositories of informations, museum collections, art collections, libraries of knowledge, and began mapping those? What could you learn, or what could an audience, like ascertain from those spaces and visualizing other people's repositories of knowledge? What would a VR and like another form of immersive experience look like in other modalities, temporal embeddings, and really like scaling our design in a multitude of ways. So we're really exciting and we're excited to explore these opportunities, but also hear about like how would you see yourself using the Knowledge Cosmos? What excited you about this tool? And yeah, like have a sort of discussion, and also happy to answer like any questions about it. So maybe we can do a couple questions and kind of your initial thoughts from what we've shared, and then we'd love to encourage you all to take the next like 10-15 minutes to actually go to the knowledgecosmos.com and use the tool. And we'd love to hear about the pathways and kind of what were your initial interest with the tool, and what did you find, or what were you hoping to find that maybe in the next iteration we include and make sure it's is built in. So we can do questions and kind of initial thoughts and just really have an open discussion. So please feel free to use the chat. And thank you so much. I think I saw already a question from Yash, and any of the panelists here, feel free to just come off of mute. We'd love to just have an open conversation.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's a question here, and then I've got a few. So could you please shortly touch on the tech stack used to model these beautiful visualizations pertaining to the Knowledge Cosmos? Are there any custom packages? So getting into the nitty-gritty of stuff.
Yeah, so we actually used a visualization software for LiDAR data called Potree, which it's if you go to the knowledgecosmos.com and the paper is up there, you can see like the full technical details of everything that I'm saying right now. But yeah, I mean, it was basically just like hacking this thing that was intended for LiDAR data for scientific visualization of these 17 million. And yeah, that software is already optimized for browser, for real time, and for up to, I mean, they advertise a trillion points is possible. And I've seen a 300 billion point visualization in this framework. So sky's the limit in terms of scaling this particular visualization. As we've, we have more ideas than what is supported by this sort of Lego model of things. I'm a sociologist, I am a programmer, but that software took the author a full dissertation to do really well. I mean, it was really a mammoth effort and an open source effort. So yeah, I have felt that for us to get to that next step, I'm inspired by a previous session. It's like I think there's a lot of investment that could go a long way towards building out that tech stack in a custom way for the purposes of, we can use it as inspiration. But yeah, I mean, it was using that. We also used publicly available vectors. So again, we brought that from another group of scientists that were studying mentorship, Kuna et al. And they had just made those available for free. So it was just about us sort of putting the pieces together and then working really hard on the interactivity bits. All the UI on top of it is custom.
Mhm. Was this was this project born out of the three of you getting around and getting together and discussing what is needed? Was there a lack that you perceived, or how did this come about? How did this project come about, and how did the three of you end up working together on it? And if you could talk a little bit more, you've already started out a little bit, but like, how did you kind of portion out the duties of creating this?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm happy to take that question. So the I think the project first started 3 years ago. I was in an astronomy and black holes class at the University of Texas at Austin, and the James Webb Space Telescope images had just come out. And I'm from Houston, Texas, and so NASA's work, the Hubble Space Telescope, is like, yeah, that's like every field trip. So when I was sitting in this classroom and we first saw the images that were released by the James Webb Space Telescope, um, it showed this additional universe, and I immediately kind of questioned, that's so interesting that we're able to see so crystal clear what else is out there. And I think what it shows us is how much we don't know and how much there is left to discover. And so I began to kind of have this thought process of like, what if we could understand or begin to visualize knowledge in this way so that we could begin to see what it is that we don't know? Because right now we've just been talking about what it is we do know. We're sharing that with each other. Here's this discovery, that discovery. And so it was kind of like a frame of reference that was built in a completely different discipline, and much like hopefully the inspirations we're hoping that the knowledge cosmos brings to other people. And I was connected by a professor at University of Texas, Jabal Lee, to Alec, who was also really passionate and excited about mapping science and visualizing knowledge. And so the metaphor was born out of this class that was taken, and this kind of questioning that began in the classroom, and then this connection was made, and we started kind of exploring this idea together. And then Nikita and I were at IBM together, and super also excited about what is it like to make the invisible visible? What does that entail? And so she's been incredible in helping us build out the interactivity and the experience of this tool, and ensuring that it's accessible to everyone. And so that's kind of like the process of us three coming together. It's much like the tool, a lot of serendipity, a lot of like curiosities and like play and fun, and I think driving questions that kind of began this like speculative search, and yeah, the building of this tool. And in terms of each of like the team members, Alec has developed the tool, and Nikita and I have led the design of it.
Yeah, I'm just curious. You all put such an emphasis on play, and it's so important to you, and it does really come through. Um, and I was just, I was curious then. Certainly, it feels wrong to say, learning should not be fun. It should not be play. We should be suffering through it. But is there a way in which play causes us to learn differently, or to pay attention to different things than we wouldn't otherwise? What is it about that actually enhances the
Mm.
learning process for you, and it makes such an important point to have that as part of the experience.
Yeah. Anyone want to take that? Alec or Nikita?
I was just going
Uh,
to mention that I think one of the things that we were thinking about a lot, especially when we were designing kind of the immersive play
Hmm.
aspect of this tool, were that the most curious people that we could think of are children. And that we really wanted to make this tool something that was, I think we emphasized, wasn't necessarily a traditional way to participate in research. We wanted it to be exciting, immersive. A lot of tools that do incorporate knowledge maps are two-dimensional. We wanted to ensure that it was three-dimensional. And we almost wanted to see if we could sort of make it a game, and make the experience fun for people, make people who wouldn't necessarily engage in traditional scholarly research feel like they too could be curious, like they too could be researchers in their own right. So I definitely think that that was a big guiding factor in why we wanted to emphasize the concept of play. Rifaa, you want to take it from there? Is there anything else?
Yeah, and like how could we were also asking like how can we decrease the like barrier to entry? Is it that you have to be writing a paper or to begin to have like this like literature review? And what is the current experience of doing something like how do people like gather knowledge if it's not reading? What are those informal methods, and how can we increase those increase experiences and opportunities to cultivate that organically?
Mhm.
And yeah, could we create a place for that kind of organic discovery? And yeah, Alec.
yeah, I was just going to say that learning has always been something that's playful for me. I don't think I learn very much in an environment where I can't figure out how to have fun
Yeah.
at the same time. So yeah, it's sort of like baked into my philosophy a little bit. Um, but it wasn't my intention. When you know, I had this idea, 3-ish years ago, which yeah, Jab Ali and Ying Ding at UT Austin were like happy to connect me with their master's students. I was at Cornell, so there's no reason why they should have. Um, in order to like marry design and understanding of the science of science to make some new maps of science. I just wanted to make maps. I wanted to make a big I think this project started out as 2D, and it
Hmm.
was just going to be an infinitely zoomable 2D map. At some point I showed the group a 3D version of it, and they just said that, and
Mhm.
it just, snowballing and changing over time. And yeah, it was very much emergent from my perspective in this project. But
Mhm.
yeah, thanks for the question.
Yeah, it seems that as I was thinking, how much latitude are we prepared to give to play? You put in the paper, and I love this. Da, 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 da. The knowledge cosmos reframes exploration as a joyful and intuitive process more akin to stargazing than to traditional search. And part of me was kind of like, oh, how do we make time for stargazing anymore? Or are we just like, you know what, Google, I want the answer. And even if it isn't the answer, I feel like it's the answer. And even though you're just trawling through ads, like there's you get that sort of quick, I've got a question, here's an answer thing. And so that idea of stargazing and just kind of like has an element of being like overwhelmed, an element of awe and wonder too, that's part of it, that I think is really valuable for this project. And I'm glad that you incorporated that. Well, another word that you bring up in your paper that I wanted you to maybe unpack a little bit is care. You say that the knowledge seeking not as an extractive act, uh, but as an act of care. Could you explain a little bit what you meant by that? I think that's such an interesting choice of words and very relevant.
Yeah, I mean, I think the way that we currently access scientific knowledge is you go color. you search, you look for things that are highly cited, that are central, that are, there are metrics that are reordering all of these pieces of knowledge for us. Whereas in the knowledge cosmos, it's more like you're in a library, where like things are next to like things, and you're just sort of like looking down the shelf. Um, it's sort of is a way to put all research on an equal playing field, right? In terms of access,
Hmm.
um, which, yeah, I think gives another feeling and also gives a lot of more respect to the amount of total knowledge that we've produced. Like even these 17 million, which are already like, yeah, they inspire awe and wonder. I think in Semantic Scholar, our scaling step, we would be getting to 350 million.
Hmm.
So this is just a fraction, some 5% of that. Um, so yeah, we produce more than we'll ever read. And every time I go into this application and click on a paper, it's something new. I've never seen anything like it before.
Yeah.
All of that I think is, yeah, at least what I thought about when I was thinking about care for research, as exemplified here.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I think we mention it in our paper too. There's a couple ways in which we hope to embody care. There's what Alec touched on, we're caring for knowledge, by visualizing it in this dynamic new space. And we're also looking at caring for curiosity, which is what we hope to inspire by encouraging things like freeform exploration, not necessarily going with specific questions or scenarios in mind, but just kind of seeing what you're able to stumble upon, from just interacting with the tool itself.
Hmm.
We did a couple of, when we were kind of designing and refining the tool, we were doing a couple of user studies. And one of my favorite portions was at the very end, we just kind of allowed the users to share their screen and kind of showcase and explore through the tool in whatever disciplines and whatever pathways that they were interested in taking, looking at papers of interest, maybe new intersections, new subfields that they had never considered before, things that popped out to them that were interests that they had never even thought of. So the way that it kind of spawned this curiosity and this new way of looking at research was something that was really exciting for us as well.
I'm going to put into the chat what I, is just check to see if that's the correct and most current link to it, so that if people who are here want to go and to explore while we talk, or and as you explore, if you have questions or feedback, please
Mhm.
put them in the Q&A. Uh, if not, if you find yourself going over time, you can do that. I put my email in here. You can email your thoughts and questions to me, and then I'll make sure to get them to the creators here so that they can have a look as well. Is this something that you want to talk about
Yeah, we'd
Yeah.
love to. Yeah, Alec, go ahead.
No, you feel free.
We were gonna say, yeah, we'd love to thank you so much for sharing the link. When you do navigate to the website, if you just press on Enter the Cosmos, is where you'll actually be able to access the tool and play around with it. And yeah, we'd love to hear your questions, your explorations. If there's something you didn't anticipate that you found, we'd love to hear about it. So I think maybe if we want to give like 5 minutes, 6 minutes to play around. And then, yeah, we'd love to hear if you can drop in the chat, what filters you added, any intersections you're exploring, a paper title that you found from the 1950s that is you're really fascinated by, or any questions you have, we'd be happy to answer that.
Yeah, we also have a mural link. I mean, do you want to use this? I think they can't chat. So yeah, Yash, if you
Oh,
could share the mural board, this would be a great place where we can all sort of drop it together. Whatever. insights, questions, suggestions,
Yeah, or even
more
like
forms.
screenshots, like if you want to add in like a screenshot of like the paper you found or like constellations that you're looking at and their relationship with each other. We'd love to see what yeah, what you're exploring.
Yeah, so let's do that. Please, if you're here, hop on and begin exploring. I was curious. I know that you did uh, user studies or user evaluations, right? Was there anything that from that immediate feedback that you got that surprised you, or that you had to that caused like a shift in direction or method or anything like that, or was it kind of like what you expected people to respond to it?
I think definitely the usability of the tool. There was a lot that people wanted to do, but I think the initial navigation and kind of intuitiveness was like the biggest challenge, especially when there's something that you're visualizing with so much volume. So like how do you focus on a paper or on a section when there's so much more out there? I think what was really interesting was how people would go from like one paper to the next and kind of seeing them like navigate and then click on the link to the publisher, go read about a paper, come back, and then forget they've like forgot to save it. So then they can there's like a history function where you can like go back. So I think seeing how people wanted to come back to the tool for because they were curious about like all the things they didn't know, and this tool was showing them just how many topics they hadn't even heard of before that they were being introduced to for the first time that they wouldn't have in a in a if you sign up for a class or you sign up for a workshop, you go to a talk, it's because you're already familiar with something. And so they were really surprised by how much they didn't know, how much verbiage and language they were hearing for the first time, or even like subjects that they weren't introduced to, or that wasn't even something that offered to like take a class in or like major in. So I think seeing that element of surprise and awe, not only at the literal visual and
Hmm.
aesthetic of the site, but at the information they were digesting as well, I think was really exciting for me. Yeah.
And something that's, I think, like a big design decision that was also made as a result of the usability study was creating that intersections tab. At first, we encourage participants to discover interdisciplinary intersections in a much more manual fashion, involving, selecting a bunch of disciplines or subdisciplines and seeing exactly how they intersected with constellations, which
Mhm.
essentially set the boundaries of disciplines.
Hmm.
And kind of like Rifaa was mentioning, it was a big like navigation and usability challenge in the fact that zooming in and out this huge volume of information and knowledge, trying to understand where those boundaries crossed spatially, definitely proved to be a challenge. As the users kind of had to go about that manually using, like keyboard controls and rotating the map around in all sorts of ways. So having this intersections tab built in, which essentially just allows users to pick the two disciplines that they're interested in, seeing how they intersect, and using this subtractive method of just showing which papers in the cloud fall within that intersection really, really simplified that process and made the focus less on trying to make those intersections appear and more on what those intersections produced.
Hmm. Yeah, that's really interesting. I know that people who watch these oftentimes want to hear some of the making of stories and the challenges that were that arose during which had to be overcome or minimized or ignored or whatever the case may be. But produce the work. Um, I think I'll just let people tap on the knowledge cosmos for a second. My knowledge cosmos story is I found a paper. I forget it. I don't think it was by, but about um, my favorite Swiss theologian from the 20th century, Hans Urs von Balthasar. Everyone should have a favorite 20th century Swiss theologian, I think, but that is my favorite. I thought, oh my gosh, this is legit now for me. I don't come from a science, but I come from a humanities. So
Hmm.
history, psychology, philosophy, theology, religious studies, those types of things are really interesting to me. So if it can speak to me, I always think this is great. So I
Hmm.
had a nice nerd out moment courtesy of the Knowledge Cosmos.
Oh, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. I'm just reading, thank you for those of you who are putting in your insights and into the mural. I see one question of I want to be able to filter just what's inside a constellation. Alec, do you want to be able to show how you can actually see you can filter by discipline and subdiscipline to be able to see just the papers if it's like of like one subject rather than intersection. So maybe Alec, you can show
There's,
us how we would do that.
I think you may be talking about, say astronomy. There's actually a button here,
Mm-hmm.
uh, which I will say is quite buggy. Um, so it's something that, you know, used to work, so it just makes everything disappear. I just noticed this before this presentation. Look, there's astronomy, so it's kind of funny. But anyways, if we clear this and select that, we can
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
just the astronomy papers, which you can also see here that not all of the astronomy papers are inside
Mm-hmm.
the constellation. This was, I mean, talking to challenges, just actually deciding or defining where we wanted to put the boundary of a field, of a discipline was, yeah, tricky and a little bit arbitrary question because every field is represented all over the place. If you wanted to put a biology constellation up and you were going to actually draw a polygon around all of the biology papers, it just covers the whole map. You don't get anything of interest. So, each of these constellations end up being those points that, it's places where there's a sufficiently high density of those papers. And then we use an algorithm called alpha shape um, to actually draw the polyhedra around it, which we had to tune a little bit. And I will say, I still would like, sometimes there is the case where I'm just like, okay, here I can see what's inside of astronomy. And here, look, if we were looking at intersections now, we could bring in something else like engineering. I mean, engineering is something I can confidently say intersects with everything. And
Mm-hmm.
indeed, there's like a little blob of engineering inside of this astronomy space
Mm.
that we can now like get inside of. Um, but yeah, there I also see potential expansion. You can see how tricky it is right now for me to just navigate to the inside of this polyhedron. Um, there's cool potential developments there where we're um, and maybe you can walk around this thing or somehow focus in on it. I don't know. Um, here, this is something about the Hubble Space Telescope. So,
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
very apropos.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if you were looking for how to like, navigate to just you're able to click within the disciplines and click on one of those dots to just filter for a certain subdiscipline.
I also wanted to mention that Alec did an amazing job at demonstrating the capabilities of the tool. But if anyone wants a quick reference, we also have a tutorial built
Yeah.
into the website that walks through all of these features, all these different ways that you can actually use the Knowledge Cosmos. So it's always good for a quick refresher.
Was that something you knew you were always going to put in? Because I love that feature of it. Was that something that, or was it after the fact you got it and said, "Wait, we need something to kind of provide an on ramp for people to get into this"?
The
Yeah.
video?
The
No, no, no.
the tutorial.
Oh,
The
the
Tutorial.
assistant.
tutorial
Yeah,
in
your
here.
assistant. Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, you can talk to that, I
Celeste,
think.
We
our
wanted
guide.
to echo the theme of exploring the cosmos. So we have a little astronaut mascot that kind of leads you through exactly how to interact with it. And yeah, that was exactly what you were mentioning, Todd. It was when we were kind of doing an iteration, a design iteration of the tool. A big part of that was ensuring that, if we're experiencing first-time users or even returning users, that it would really enhance the usability by allowing them to refamiliarize themselves with how because there's a lot to this tool, and there's a lot of care and work that we put into it. So we want to make sure that everyone aptly understands how they can best use it to suit their exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's just a fun little interactive demonstration too, instead of a list of instructions. So we had fun with that too.
Yeah.
Love this comment. I looked for papers in my year of birth. That's super fun. I haven't tried that. I'll have to do that as well.
Yeah.
And then I see an insight about mathematical physics is really interesting, comparing the work that's in math or physics spatially. Okay, some challenges that were faced within tool settings. Slicer tool and intersecting mesh tools were difficult to figure out. May need some tool tips or help there.
Yeah, those tools are interesting. They're in development, and I love them, but they didn't make it, they didn't make the final cut into something, that would be fully explainable and understandable. So just to reference what's happening here, if you go into the settings here, you get all kinds of extra stuff. So you can change all of the little settings, tweak it to your liking, label settings, UI settings, but there's also these extra tools at the bottom. So this slicer tool, you can see I have an extra icon in my
You might
lower
need to
bar.
share your screen, Alec.
I'm not sharing my screen. That's so embarrassing. Okay. So to show, here's the settings up here on the right. If you scroll all the way to the bottom, there's tools settings. And yeah, here is the cross-section tool, which allows you to look at cuts. And I'm actually going to go back to the full graph for this. You can look at a cut almost like it's the brain of this knowledge cosmos. So you can slide it up and down, looking at different slices. You can make the slice thicker or thinner. It's just another way to sort of explore the shape and look inside, because often from the outside, it's hard to see all of the little structures that are going on inside of there. So yeah, this is, in progress. I was really excited to get the technical bit of this working. What it means or how to use it is another thing. Yeah, and a similar thing with the intersecting mesh tool. The idea here, again, it's just an idea. So if we have, again, we'll do engineering and physics. Maybe it would be interesting to just look at the intersection of these two. These two, which here there's a little intersection button where you can select the other field you want to intersect with, and suddenly you get this energy engineering intersected with physics mesh, which you can see is filled in. I'll actually, again, these are some of the most unintuitive features of the knowledge cosmos. They're still in development, right? So here we have it, and I have to say also, it's hard to find the intersection of two polyhedra in a way that makes another nice polyhedron. But anyways, that's a little bit of a response to that.
Yeah, this is helpful. This is such a deep, multifaceted piece that some of the stuff I'm saying, like I didn't see it the first time. So I'm glad that I'm saying it now. Like, okay, yeah, this is great. Yeah, fantastic.
Yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for your engagement, for adding your comments, your questions to the mural. Feel free to continue doing that and continue playing around with the knowledge cosmos. And yes, I think that Yash and Todd, I think, shared the email. So if you want to get in touch with us, I believe we have a contact form as well at and you can feel free to email us at info@theknowledgecosmos.com, Yeah, where if you have ideas, if you'd love to collaborate and you see a space maybe we haven't thought of for the Knowledge Cosmos to live and to be expanded, we'd love to hear and really have a conversation with anyone. But yeah, thank you so
Yeah,
much.
absolutely.
And Todd, thank you for moderating. It's been so exciting to hear your thoughts as well. And thank you for all the wonderful questions. And yeah, I know we have 5 minutes. I don't know if there's a break before the next speaker comes on, but yeah, any last thoughts or questions we're happy to answer.
Yeah, absolutely. So now is this mural board, this is something that people can continue to add to if they're like later today or as the thing, and you'll monitor and yeah.
Definitely.
Okay, great.
Yeah. It can be a living
Oh,
document. So
fantastic. All
always
right. If I come back next week with something, I forgot to ask them that. Okay. I will do
we'll
that.
check in on it.
Okay. Good, good. Um, I have to say just one more thing. One of the stories that I liked, I think it was from your user evaluations. There was one participant who explored intersections between her own field of political science and her peers' background in computer science as a way to bridge their domains. And I never thought of it. I just never thought of it that way. That's such a beautiful way of thinking about like knowledge. I always think of it, well, where can I fill in the gaps in my now, like what do I need to understand? But the idea of kind of using it to build a better relationship with a
Mhm.
peer or a partner or what, I think is a great way to think about that. So I was really heartened
Yeah.
by that story very much.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah, we're really excited by the concept of pluralism, which we know is, typically when you hear pluralism, it's in like the humanities and in understanding and the diversity and celebration of multiple faiths and our differences and but pluralism, and we're really excited about like language learning and discipline learning and how can we better understand each other and our passions through this tool as well, and what are ways that we can build bridges from the backgrounds of our academics and our studies, and yeah, what are opportunities to collaborate on. So it's been
Mhm.
really exciting to see like us how we embody the values of the knowledge cosmos in our conversations in daily life, and how some of our
Mm.
users kind of picked up on that as well. So
Yeah, awesome. Well, yes, thank you so much. We're really excited and very, very happy and pleased to have this as part of the exhibit. And so yeah, stick around if you can for others. But these are all videoed and they show up on our YouTube page as well. So if you don't want to stay up for the whole 24 rest of the 24 hours, you can check them out later at your own convenience. So be sure to do that. So thank you once again to you all and really appreciate your time.
Thank you
thank
so
Thank you.
you.
So now we're